God loves us. Later they sent some of the Pharisees and Herodians to Jesus to catch him in his words. They came to him and said, "Teacher, we know that you are a man of integrity. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are, but you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. Is it right to pay the poll tax to Caesar or not? Should we pay or shouldn't we?" But Jesus knew their hypocrisy. "Why are you trying to trap me?" he asked. "Bring me a denarius and let me look at it." They brought the coin, and he asked them, "Whose image is this, and whose inscription?" "Caesar's," they replied. Then Jesus said to them, "Give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's." And they were amazed at him. In Greek mythology, Theseus was a young warrior who sailed from Athens to Crete to battle with the Minotaur, the monster with the head of a bull and the body of a man. When he returned, the Athenians preserved his ship. But as the years passed by, the ship naturally started to rot. So, bit by bit, each rotting part of the ship was replaced with new material. After a few hundred years, the mast, the sails, every single plank, and all the ropes had been replaced. This left a question that philosophers have argued about for centuries. After replacing every part of the boat, was this still Theseus's famous ship? This might sound like a pointless question, but it is in fact at the heart of being and reality. Recently I was visiting my parents' house and looked at photos of myself as a child. As I looked at the face of a mischievous young boy, I remember the story of the ship and of Theseus and asked myself, was this the same person as the one who is in those photos? On one hand, I obviously am. But on the other hand, I've changed so much since these photos. Could it be that I'm actually a completely different person by now? After all, human cells don't last a lifetime, and our bodies constantly regenerate themselves. The lining of our gut is replaced every 5 days, red blood cells every 120 days, and our bones every 10 years. Physiologically at least, almost nothing of little Tristan is writing these words. Furthermore, I also have a very different view of the world than I did then, with regards to society, politics, faith, and even sadly about Father Christmas and the Easter Bunny. I've changed because of education, but also because of what I've experienced, not least the pain and suffering that I've had in my own life and that I've witnessed in the lives of friends, family, and parishioners. So the question remains, in what ways can I be regarded as the same as the small child in those photographs? In today's passage, Jesus asserts, "Give back to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's." It was an answer that flummoxed the Pharisees who were trying to catch him out, to get him either to support paying taxes to the Romans and thus seal his fate with the Jewish people, or to suggest that people refuse to pay taxes and thus seal his fate with the Romans. His answer was profound. It is an answer that allows us to recognize that we give money to our government when we pool our resources for roads, schools, and hospitals, but also acknowledges that all things, including ourselves and each other, are gifted to us from our Father. Caesar's image may have been on first-century coins, just as our monarch's head is on ours, but God's image is on everything. Jesus' answer is an invitation to recognize the image of God in all his creation, including in you and me. This leads us Christians to recognize and affirm the true nature and reality of our being. After all, in the first chapters of Genesis, God creates humankind in his own image, and on looking back at his handiwork, we are told that he saw all that he had made and it was very good. In other words, we are all children of God. He created us and he delights in us. However far down the tunnel of darkness we have fallen, however different we may be from our childhood selves, in God's eyes we still continue to be unique, irreplaceable, and infinitely loved. Scientists looking at a picture of little Tristan and then looking at the person writing this might point to the cerebral cortex in my brain. This is the one part of my body that will remain for my lifetime, storing up memories, thoughts, views, and attitudes. Scientists might claim that this is what makes big Tristan the same as little Tristan. Our passage today urges us to go beyond a simply mechanistic reading of reality. It allows us to affirm that, as everything is God's, so each one of us has ultimate worth and value. We are who we are because we are created and loving beings. We are God's children, made in his image and loved as much now as when we were innocent little children, or in my case, not so innocent. After all, whatever joys and sufferings we have experienced in our lives, however different our bodies, views and attitudes might be from when we were children, that one thing hasn't changed: God's boundless, unconditional and forgiving love for us all. That, more than anything, should have a huge impact. First, on how we view ourselves, loved and cherished as we are, and second, on how we treat others, loved and cherished as they are. Reflection. George Orwell asked, "What do we have in common with your 5-year-old self?" Nothing, he concluded, except that you happen to be the same person. Think of yourself then when you were younger. Some of your hopes, dreams, desires, dislikes and fears. It may be helpful if you look at an old photo of yourself while you're thinking. Now think of all that you've been through: joy, pain, happiness and suffering. At this point you might find looking at yourself in the mirror will aid your reflection. How different are you now than you were as a child? Take some time and silence to sit in the knowledge of God's love for you through all the ups and downs of your life.